So let's talk a little bit about specifics on what you can actually do to improve your lifestyle to get healthier.
Okay.
And I'll have a few things where we go into a little bit of detail.
Okay.
We'll go some numbers and talk calories and things like that. But I do want to keep it fairly simple. I can get pretty complicated as you know, and explaining things, and that's when his eyes kind of glaze over when I explain things. He just kind of tell me the gist of it, how it works. So so for the sake of simplicity, an example, let's use the COVID-19 pounds.
Okay.
For an example, but we're going to round it up to 20.
Okay.
So let's just say, what do we have to do to get rid of 20 pounds? So it's basically calories in versus calories out.
Right.
If you're burning more calories than you take in, you will lose weight. Mm-hmm. If you're taking in more calories than you burn, you will gain weight. So now we're going to get in a few numbers here just for clarity how everything works, but there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So if you burn 3,500 to lose it, you lose a pound. And if you eat 3,500 in excess, then you'll gain a pound. Mm-hmm. It's simple math. The average requirement for men is about 2,400 calories per day. Mm-hmm. Women is around 2,000. Give or take a few hundred here and there, depending on metabolism. Or these are just sort of even numbers here. So if you ate 500 calories less per day, you lose 1 pound per week, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's 500 times 7, that's 3,500. Some of you have all heard this before, but I'm just giving you some numbers to make this all make sense for what we'll be talking about when we get into the weeds a little bit of how we actually do some of the things in our lifestyle.
Right.
Okay, so if you eat 1,000 calories less per day, that ends up being 2 pounds per week weight loss. And so if you do additional exercise, if you burn 250 calories,
right,
and you eat 250 calories less, that's a 500 calorie deficit, which should in turn lead to a 1 pound per week weight loss. Mm-hmm. And so now that's a bunch of numbers, layman's terms. If you walked for 2.5 miles a day, and if you would normally drink a vanilla latte grande once a day, if you eliminate that and you walk 2.5 miles a day, that's 500 calories. You lose a pound a week simply by doing that. Mm-hmm. So that just kind of puts things into perspective. Now, there's a lot of diet plans out there. Mm-hmm. You've got low fat, low carb, keto, high fat, low sugar, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, high fiber, Mediterranean, intermittent fasting. And it all boils down to calories in versus calories out. And you find a plan that fits and works for you. And we've talked about, we've literally talked about this at the gym.
Right.
And we've talked about, the amount of carbs you take in, how many carbs I take in, and following the macronutrients of proteins, carbs, and fats, and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I'm getting into details here. But with that being said, I've always told you, it's like, you just got to find something on your own using those numbers, something that fits into your lifestyle, the foods you like to eat, and how you go about doing that. So last summer, when you started paying more attention to what you were eating and kind of specifically how much exercise you were doing, you made some pretty good results. So let's hear what you actually did during that time period.
Okay, so, last Father's Day, my wife got me a Fitbit, which is a little watch thing. And at first I was like, you know what? I already have a watch that I wear. I don't need a Fitbit. What is this thing going to do? But what the Fitbit does for me is it counts the calories. So it has a lot of different features, but mainly I go for the calorie thing. And it has an app on your phone. And so as you're walking, it will track how many miles you've walked and all those kind of things. It also has on there, you can track what your food, that whole math thing, right? So what you eat versus what you burn. And so what I just started doing is paying attention. And so I would track every meal. I would just put in, here's what I ate. And then it would calculate all of the weird stuff of fats and proteins and all that stuff. And then I just looked at the end of the day, and if I was at a point where I had eaten or was getting close to where I was eating as much as I had burned, then I just had to cut it off for the day.
Okay.
When I first started, my goal was to have 1,000 less calories eaten than I burned. And so that was that combination thing. I started walking at that time. And so I've walked literally thousands of miles over the last probably almost a year now. But that's part of it. So the burning part of it, and then cutting down the food. And so that the combination of those things got to the 1,000 calorie deficit. I would say this: if you're going to do something, you have to have the kind of that long-term view. If you lose 60 pounds in 60 days, you're probably going to gain 60 pounds in 60 days. But if you look at it and you say, I'm not going on a diet to lose weight, I'm changing my lifestyle, and you just say, okay, so I'm going to start eating differently, and I'm going to allow my body to adjust to what I'm eating and my exercise plan, you're going to see that your body's going to adjust to where you are. What I realized a long time ago is you have to eat the amount of food you're eating to maintain your current level of either fitness or non-fitness. So let's say you weigh 220 pounds. Well, everything that you're eating you have to eat enough food to maintain 220 pounds. Because if you don't, it's going to start to drop off. And that's calories in, calories out. I mean, it's just a natural thing. And so if you just change that part of the equation and I just start to eat less, well, all of a sudden, I'm not eating enough to maintain 220 pounds, and so it starts to drop off. And exercise is that same thing. It just kind of fuels that whole process so that it becomes faster. But again, the idea isn't just to trim down, but it's I want to get healthier, and so I've got to change. It's a lifestyle change. And so for me, it was I love breads, I love sweets, I love all those things, and so it's just do the things your mom told you to do, right? Eat your meats and your vegetables and get your dairy products and those kind of things, but avoid Cokes and chips and candy and all of those things. And when you start to do that, just making healthy food choices, it happens pretty fast. I particularly am more of a high protein, just low carb. And I just love meat. So I'm a carnivore. I eat lots of meat. But for some folks, that doesn't work as well. Like you said, you got to find the thing that fits your lifestyle and what you can maintain. So if your family, and it's kind of an agreement you have to have with your family, because if you're not the one cooking, then you don't want to put your wife in a situation where she's making 3 meals so that you can eat what you want, the kids can eat what they want, and then she has her own meal. But you have to figure out, well, how can I adjust what I'm eating to fit with what the family's doing? When you go out, you have to make the decision before you go. It's kind of like what you tell your kids. You need to decide how you're going to respond in whatever the situation is. You know what? If you're out on a date, you need to decide before you leave the house what you're going to do on that date and how far you're willing to go. And same thing when you go out to eat. Okay, I need to decide before I go, what am I going to eat? If I'm going to a burger joint, am I going to eat a hamburger? Am I going to eat French fries? Am I going to do those things? And if I'm not, then I've got to have a kind of a plan before going there. Most places, if you say protein style, they will cut the bun and they'll do the lettuce wrap for you.
Yep.
You don't have to have French fries just because you have a hamburger. You don't have to have a Coke just because you have a hamburger. You can just have a hamburger, right? That's pretty simple. Movie theaters have been shut down for so long, but for a lot of folks, you can't watch a movie without having popcorn. But maybe you could switch that up and have something a little bit different. That was the key
for you. That's what happened.
There
because
you go.
When the theater shut down,
that's right.
There it is. That was a huge.
So you just have to make those little choices that you can consistently make. And I would say a lot of success is those little kind of steps in the same direction that lead to big gains. If you're trying to do it fast and you're trying to get it all done at one time, you might succeed in losing. I think there's a diet that you can do 10 pounds in 10 days.
Probably.
But the next 10 days, you're going to gain 10 pounds back because you haven't changed the way you eat.
Right.
And so when you change those things and you get a healthy lifestyle, then it goes in. One last thing, I started walking at that point, but what I did was I incorporated prayer into that. And so for me, my walking time is a prayer time. And so if you suggested walking 2.5 miles, if you were praying that whole time that you were walking, that's probably for most people, that's going to be about 30 to maybe 40 minutes of walking. And you did 40 minutes of walking and you were praying during that time. That's a lot of time to pray for your family or pray for your kids or pray for yourself or pray for the church or pray for things that are going on in the world around us. So that's time that's not wasted, and you don't have to. You don't have to listen to anything while you're doing it. You can actually either take those out or have some music in the background. What I do is low music, and then I'm just praying the whole time. So
that's good. You incorporate that into it. You get a spiritual aspect out of it, and you're burning calories at the same time. And you're out in nature.
Right.
And, getting to see the birds and walking through 50-mile-an-hour winds.
That's right.
Many mornings.
That's right.
It's kind of fun when you've come in with your calculations of how far you've walked. Because I remember one time you came in and said, okay, I've walked the entire coastline of Japan, I think.
Right,
and then you were going down India or something like that, with everything adding up. And which ends up being thousands of miles.
Right.
It's like one small step type of thing. So for myself, I'm kind of seasonal, and I've done this for many years. When it's warmer out, I tend to do a little bit more cardio, and I tend to lean down a little bit more. When it gets a little bit cooler, I sort of bulk up, but I'm also trying to pay attention to strength training. So if you eat a little bit more, you're a little bit stronger. I mean, that's calories in versus calories out, and it's just
girth.
It's girth.
Girth helps you push.
Girth helps you push. So I've been able to. I mean, I've kind of done that my whole life. It's like the winter months, I'll gain a little bit more weight, but I don't just see how much weight I can gain. I have limits. I know what my body weight is. I kind of go for more body fat percentage. And if I hit a certain range, I don't like to go over 16, 17%. If I'm at that range, then I start backing off a little bit. The summer months, I get as lean as I kind of feel like it. And I know to get really lean, you kind of have to suffer a little bit, and I don't really like to suffer that much. So it's I kind of have this range probably from 12% to about 16 or 17%, which I go throughout the year. Also, I know the holidays come up in the wintertime, so it's again, socially, it's a little bit more fun to socialize with people. If you do have a few treats during that time of year versus saying, oh, no, I can't eat that. Oh, no, I can't eat that. You can insult somebody if you just always say, I'm not going to eat your food.
Right.
But at the same time, when you want to be able to, if you're always on a diet, it's just limiting to where you're at, your friends, and it kind of gives you the reputation of they're a very picky eater. And it's you don't want to put that meter all the way one side or on the other. So, but I tend to, I'm more of I count my macros. That's kind of where I'm at. And it's all calories in versus calories out. When I say macros, I'm talking macronutrients, and those are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. I like to go somewhere between 150 to 200 grams of protein per day. And I try to keep my carbohydrates, if I'm leaning out, probably closer to 150. The bulking, I'm probably more around 300 to 400 or sometimes higher. And the fats I don't really count because I don't actually add the fats. I don't really cook with butter. I don't eat a lot of butter. I have a little bit here and there. I like to try to get healthy fats from from nuts and vegetable oils and things like that. So I don't, and I'll eat more egg whites and the egg yolks. And so just things that I'm always conscious of. And another thing that's helped me is, and we both said this, I'm a lot hungrier at night than I am in the morning. So I kind of plan for that, and I will eat more of the protein foods in the morning, lunchtime, and the evenings. I kind of save my carbohydrates up, kind of like, I guess, comfort food. But I just I'm a little bit more hungry in the evening. And again, it's calories in versus calories out. People say you eat too much at night, it's just going to turn to fat. Well, it's like if my calories are 2,000 to 2,400 calories, I'm not going to gain weight. It doesn't matter if I eat them at 8 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
You just know what those calories are. You know what your trigger points are, and you know what's easiest to be able to achieve for yourself. Find something that fits for you. So there's one plan I've kind of wanted to try is the keto plan, where it's mostly protein and higher fats, and pretty much 0 to low carb. The process is if you after a few days you're no longer using carbohydrates for fuel, you're using ketones. Your body switches over, and so you don't feel as lethargic as you do the first few days. But for me, it's like keto is really hard to try to fit in socially. And I found that people tend to have really good results with it and have a lot of rapid weight loss. But trying to maintain that with a family, like you said, it's like you cook this meal for you, this for your spouse, and this for your kids. That gets a little hard. So I think keto is a very effective way to do a rapid weight loss, to kind of get things on track quickly. And then you might need to switch over to more of just a moderate, lower carb diet where it isn't so sacrificial, I guess you'd have to say.